And let's jump into that first story from the New York Post. The U.S. buys millions of monkeypox vaccines after Massachusetts confirms case. The U.S. has ordered 13 million additional doses of the monkeypox vaccine after a Massachusetts man contracted the rare but potentially severe virus. The massive $119 million order of the Jynneos jabs, which can be used to treat both the monkeypox virus and smallpox, was created by the biotechnology company Bavarian Nordic, according to Newsweek. In 2015, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, approved the use of the Jynneos as a vaccine for the rare virus. Monkeypox was first discovered in 1958, blah, blah, blah. Symptoms include fever, headache, body aches, swollen lymph nodes, chills, exhaustion, and in some cases rashes. Within recent years, there have been several flare-ups of the disease, several of them in the UK. 2 cases were imported in the US in 2021. However, if you head over to the Wikipedia entry for the 2022 monkeypox outbreak, I think perhaps we could ask some questions about why it already has a Wikipedia entry and what's happening this year where this kind of story could greatly benefit someone. And, well, it's politics. Now, before we get into all that, they're saying the virus strain is the West African clade of the monkeypox virus, which has a mortality rate, my understanding, is less than 1%. They say, but however, they do say, although usually monkeypox generally presents with similar symptoms to smallpox, although usually milder. However, the case fatality rate for monkeypox may still be as high as 10% without prompt treatment. And if you go down, we have the UK, Spain, Portugal, the US, Sweden, Italy, Belgium, Canada, and France. Now, in Canada and France, there are suspected cases, not confirmed cases, but in the 7 other countries, we have confirmed cases totaling 34. Perhaps it's nothing, right? Perhaps this is just something that happens every year, and maybe the media's latched onto it because it'll generate clicks. Maybe it can be used to scare people for an election, or maybe they just purchased 13 million monkeypox vaccines for a reason. I told Luke Rudkowski when he was on the show, what was this, before January, I thought we'd see a lockdown this year because of the midterms and the Democrats didn't have anything else. He said, no, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. They can't. And then after a few months, I said, you know what? I think Luke's right. They're pulling the lockdowns back. I still think it would be a stretch that they would lock down over this. But when you've got a virus and they're going around saying a 10% mortality rate, I wonder if they'll actually try and pull off another lockdown.
I think we need to take all potential pandemics very seriously, but the issue here right now is that the trust in the CDC is at an all-time low. So I think information surrounding this virus is going to be very untrusted, and maybe rightfully so. Again, we already have like a Wikipedia page about this. I think at one point it said it's endemic in Nigeria.
Yeah. Well, some people from Nigeria have gotten it, but the West African clade of the monkeypox virus is what they're saying now.
Yeah, so I remember thinking originally when they had like the 14 days to stop the spread that we wouldn't be able to sustain that in our public, wouldn't be able to, wouldn't put up with that. And I was so off base with what that was. So I don't know what's going on with this. What do you guys think?
Well, I think people should learn enough from past 2 years. What is our trust level today on the media or our government agencies, right? It's very low. And I still have lots of questions never got answered. And we're still waiting for more and more evidence, more truth to come out. And this kind of stuff, like we have always left, with lots of stuff in the past, and people are ready to move on, have a normal life back. There's still lots of mental health issues our children, our people have not even got resolved yet. I have a friend who's got long COVID. She cannot have solutions. She's still coughing. So I'm just not ready for this. I hope people will have more questions instead of jumping into what the media is saying.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think a lot of people aren't going to jump to what the media is saying. Even if this does turn out to be something substantial and it really is a risk, people aren't going to be willing to trust the media and the CDC, and for good reason, because they spent the last 2 years completely undermining any credibility they may have had with the American people.
I'm just imagining Fauci, when the news broke, he was like, thank you. And he opens his closet and there's just a whole bunch of different masks.
Puts his top hat on and his cane. He starts singing.
He picks out his tie, and then he also pulls out he's got all the masks lined up, and there's like different pens. And I'll take this one. And then he puts it on and he gets ready.
And how many people will still call him now? King Fauci. I don't know.
Well, he did say he would resign if Donald Trump got elected.
Please.
Really?
Yeah, so everybody was like, okay, hey.
vote for him
So we'll
now.
vote for Donald Trump in
Wild is-
2024 is a
yeah.
vote against Fauci and Joe Biden?
Heck yeah.
It's wild. Why would he
Yeah.
campaign for Trump like that? It's
Right,
crazy.
seriously.
I'm kind of questioning who this could potentially help politically, this becoming a big story in the news. And the only people I could initially think that this could help is the people who effed up big time during the COVID pandemic. And, with certain lockdowns, who does this help? We kind of memory hold, the origin of COVID and holding people responsible for COVID who may have let it out or, helped exacerbate the issue around the planet. So this could potentially help them. I also know it's called Monkeypox. So maybe this is just like an anti-monkey lobbyist group, because I know with, the China virus, we were concerned about hate crimes because of that. And now, why are they calling this monkeypox? It's a little bit insensitive.
Because it was first isolated in monkeys.
Oh, that
Or
makes
first
too much
discovered.
sense.
So I pulled up Reddit.
Well, I was told Corona was first isolated in a bat.
That's right.
So
Right. So when I pulled up Reddit, you take a look at the comments. Someone comments on why. He says, I don't understand why so many comments are being removed. And the response is, all I know is COVID-19 started just like this. News of infections all over Europe, then to the US, but it's contained. And then all of a sudden, bam, lockdown. I expect anything to happen nowadays. And then someone said, well, we have 2 years of contact tracing, so we should be able to easily find out exposure. Oh, yeah, right.
Also, wait, I just want to make a point. I was making a joke earlier, but I actually still want to correct this. I said isolated in a bat. It was never isolated in a bat. They just said it came from a bat when they were talking about
In New York
COVID.
City, they just changed the COVID alert to high, and people are already prepared to start masking again. So if this spreads even a little bit, some places in the country are willing to lock down over relatively small things again, and are happy to. So
And China, 1/4 of population under COVID lockdown for Omicron. It's like we'll talk about something else is coming. You're talking about $18 trillion economy in China. 1/4 of them are under lockdown. And we're going through food shortages, supply issues, and people have no access to medicine, medical care, and they're committed suicide. And we don't see lots of report on that and condemn this kind of inhuman treatment of their citizens. And now we're talking about this. It's an insane world,
We talked about the rat hope experiment before. So this was where the guy puts the rat in the cylinder full of water. The rat can't get out, and then within 15 minutes it just gives up and then sinks to the bottom and dies. But then he puts another rat in after right when it's about to give up and it starts sinking. He pulls it out, dries it off, lets it rest, picks it up, puts it back in. This time the rats would swim for an average of 60 hours because they thought there was hope that if they just waited, somebody would pull them out. And I'm feeling like this is what we're bumping into. After COVID, we get 2 years of this insanity. Everybody's about to lose their mind, and then all of a sudden everything goes back to normal. Now you get monkeypox, and what's to say? I'm not saying it will happen. If they lock down, people are going to be like, I can handle the lockdown. We know if we just wait long enough, eventually we'll get through this. And then this time it'll be 5 years. 5 years of weird lockdown, people starving, locked in their homes, doors welded shut, like what's going on in China right now.
I know. It's like 2 years ago, right? Wuhan lockdown, like 13 million people. Now Shanghai is 25 million. And the whole country, 45 cities, you're talking about 370 million people under lockdown. And they censor all the information, like how many people are dying of lack of food, medical care, and access to medicine, and how many people committed suicide. There are lots of videos on WeChat. As soon as I get to it, say, no, it's gone. This violates our regulation. It sounds like there's some notice I would get from Facebook, And it's so sad for me to say, because I have lots of friends in Shanghai. I went to college there. I worked there for 7 years total time in Shanghai. And imagine those people who support economic reform, had a good life and retired now, and they have money and they cannot buy food. And I have one friend even commented, I get it now, why Americans hold on to their guns.
Wow.
Even Chinese get it now. It's like because they got locked down by the wires, electrical wires on their steps to go out. So they cannot get out, even get some fresh air. And totally rely on government delivery food. Who gets the priorities if you have 25 million people? Of course, people who are high up with connections. It's madness. And the farmers see their vegetable dying of getting rotten because there's a total breakdown between the food supply and to the end user customers. So roads are blocked, You have to have massive testing, so people cannot get to the food. And the people have power. Guess what they do? They hoard food or they sell for very high prices. And those people who wear white clothes, you see all those terrible videos. Guess their new names? It's a white guards instead of red guards under Mao's China.
Oh, wow, yeah.
White guards, yes. And they're total nuts, very thuggish. One girl was raped by leaving alone, and the white guard come in and not just raped her, but also kill her. Mom is like, please help, my daughter is dead. And it's like, it's so heartbroken. You know, that's why I'm running. I don't want this ever come to America.
I think New Hampshire is relatively safe, but it's mostly because of people like you and the Free State Project. Because New Hampshire is moving closer and closer to freedom, further and further away from the establishment, the authoritarianism. But I would not be surprised if we got a lockdown out of this. And it's early. It's early. This could be a blip, and then within a week, there's no story. It's gone, and it was like false alarm, everybody. I just kind of feel like when I saw that they already made a Wikipedia entry for it, I'm like, somebody with time and energy decided to make an entry for an outbreak when we're at 34 cases. Is that really a global outbreak? Is that? I guess so. So I just wonder.
Well, the plan is a lot bigger than just, recently it showed up in Wikipedia. Think about the former KGB guy, Yurin, what he said 40 years ago. He died, and he said the communists will infiltrate into America, and they're going to take 2 generations to bring down United States of America. Why 2 generations? He said, well, you got to have 4 steps. Number 1 step is demoralize a society, then destabilize it. Then you go through crisis situations. Then you're trying to normalize it. But when they're trying to normalize it, your rights and freedom are all gone. It's their normalization. I'm terrified to say, this craziness going on in the world. I know New Hampshire is great. That's why I moved there. But I'm worried about the whole country because I have 3 children who were born in this country. They're living in other states right now. Yeah.
I'm not sure we can pull back. I think maybe we've gone off the edge of the cliff a long time ago, and now it's a free fall. Right? With just we've been demoralized. Now we're destabilized, and I don't think there is a coming back because there's just too many people in this country that don't care to know, but want power. And when you take ignorant people, lazy ignorant people, who desire power because they think they're smarter than you, they destroy things. These are the kind of people that, we're in a car and we're driving straight towards the edge, about to go off the cliff, and you got the person on the right side and the person on the left side, and the person on the right keeps saying, stop. Turn. The person on the left is like, no, I'm right. I know what I'm doing. And then straight off the edge of the cliff.
But their part of the plan is called indoctrination of the youth, take away parental rights. Kids belong to the state and believe in Marxism and socialism and free stuff. And guess who are they today? Social justice warriors, work activists, or whatever you call them. I don't know. It's really, we have to blame ourselves, our educational system, really, when you think about it. Hong Kong people, young people go out to risk their life to protest, want democracy, want freedom, and even want the Second Amendment. Our young people here, please have more gun control, take my guns away.
Well, I agree, and sadly, it's not just the young people, it's the older people who don't really care about the young and aren't really interested in protecting the youth. So, for example, we have a CDC report which said youth suicide attempts soared during the pandemics. I mean, you lock kids in their homes, you take away normal social settings and situations, they're going to be more likely to get depressed. We also know that they had mask mandates for children. In New York, children were the last people who were still required to wear masks.
They're still required to wear them now.
Right now, exactly.
Still, yeah.
And so adults aren't doing their responsibility in protecting children from this kind of stuff.
And you would think those are the most vulnerable of our society, little young kids who don't know what's going on, lose valuable time of learning years. I heard kids who are under 4, they lost 2 years to speak properly because everybody's wearing a mask and, hide their faces, cannot develop the social skills. And they're going through speech therapy right now. It's like even an article published by the Atlantic. It's like, my kids need speech therapy.
Exactly. And so I think we've seen this. One of the strategies of the communist movement is to try to break down the family. And so it's going in both directions. Firstly, you see it is very much the case that children don't respect their parents anymore, and they look to the states to find solutions. They look to the state to find solutions to problems rather than to the family structure. And also, of course, as I just mentioned, parents are not really interested in protecting their children either. This really goes in both directions. The family has very much been chipped away at from every angle.
I want to make a point on that, but I do want to make a point on the speech thing real quick. You ever watch a TV show and the volume is just a little too low, but you can tell what they're saying by how their mouth is moving?
Yeah.
And then you like look down at your phone, and now all of a sudden the clear words become. Seeing the mouth movements really does. We are verbal and visual communicators, vocal and visual, and all these kids now, these little kids, all they saw was masks. So their brain was like not getting the full communications experience. Now these kids, like you mentioned, they're in therapy, or they're going to grow up and they're going to be stunted.
Yeah.
So going back to what you were saying about the family, I mean, absolutely. And I agree that a lot of parents, I'll say it myself. I don't think a lot of parents care about their kids.
No.
I think they care about them in a superficial way. But I'm surprised to hear these stories every day where it's like, look, we had this video from Libs of TikTok where a mother says my 15-year-old daughter was given pornographic material to do an assignment on, and she was mortified. And when she tried reading the assignment, they told her to stop talking because it was too vulgar for the meeting. And this is like the 5th story we've seen about this. And she was like, my daughter was given this. Where were the other parents? Why was just this one mother speaking about this? How many parents, how many kids are in a school, right? You've got what, 1,000 maybe? Or more? Shouldn't there be hundreds of parents showing up being like, why were my children given this? No, they're not showing up. They have no idea. It's insane to me. Just look, I get it. I don't have kids, but when I grew up, my parents asked me about school all the time. How was school? What did you learn? And they would ask me questions and they would give me answers. Just the idea that you'd come home and they'd be like, meh, and have no idea what the teachers were grooming you for.
I know, it's sad. When we raised our 3 children, they went to public school in Douglas County, Colorado. We know that we have to have family dinner together every night, and then we talk to them about school, and then we ask them actually tough questions. So they have to tell us what's going on, what the teacher taught them. So we have to basically deprogram them. You have to do this as families. If you cannot afford private school, you cannot afford a homeschool, you got to have a conversation with your kids. You cannot just treat school as babysitters. Go to school hours long, then we do our business, we do our work, and the kids come home. There's a very funny meme, like some kids go to college at the age of 18 and come back look like total Karl Marx.
Well,
here goes your student, no money, you pay for it.
I wonder if it's a communist plot or if it's just dominoes falling over.
Yeah.
If you look at the 70s with women's liberation, right? A lot of people don't understand. I think it was 1974. Pre-1974, women couldn't get credit cards without their husband's signature. So it's like, you're not married, too bad. Something like that. Fact check me on that one.
Yeah,
but I've heard a lot of those stories. But we do know that in the late 70s, more and more women started to enter the workplace. All of a sudden, the workforce doubles. Well, if the supply of workers doubles, but the demand stays the same, workers are going to be losing out because they have no negotiating power. All of a sudden now, women who could work, didn't have to, now have to, because wages are stagnant and now you need 2 incomes to support your family. Now, without anyone to take care of the family, you need somewhere to put your kids. But you can't afford daycare, so public schools come around. Now your kids are handed off to the state. The next step is these kids are raised by the state employees, like literal agents of the state, and they grow up. Now you've got the millennial generation, which is split between many, average people, and then a whole bunch of pro-government socialist kids. I'm not going to call them adults. They're old children. We'll call it that. And now they're advocating for an expansion upon the government controlling more and more your lives. But why? They were raised by the government. They weren't raised by their parents. They were raised in government institutions. That's freaky to me.
And their teachers are trained by Marxist professors in teachers' colleges. How many teachers' colleges in the country, so those teachers can become our kids' teachers. And when I go to school, talk about Cultural Revolution, how many people died under Mao's communism, and all the details, horrors. Some teachers who are Democrats said, "Oh, Lily, we never knew that." So if they don't know, how do they teach our kids real history? Or is it there like a left side of story of history? 100 million people died under 100 years of communism. And some people will say, they did not do it right. They did not do the socialism and communism. Like, how many people are you going to experiment with this ideology?
I wonder if you get Bill Gates in private, and he knew that he was safe, what he would say about the communist dictatorships. He's a guy who's given talks saying we need to reduce population growth. And I wonder, because certainly the communists effectively reduced population growth, by exterminating 100 million people, which is horrifying.
And then their one-child policy as well.
Right.
And starving to death.
I'm not accusing Bill Gates of anything. I'm genuinely curious what he might think of that, because if he's a utilitarian, and he seems to be, I'd imagine he'd be like, well, positive outcome, I guess.
By the way, I just want to mention, so I did just a little bit of Googling here since you mentioned the thing about women not being able to get credit cards. What I'm reading is that it was the case that before there was an anti-discrimination law, a bank could deny them a credit card. I'm not sure how often it happens.
Yeah.
One website is saying that they could face a barrage of questions when trying to get a credit card that men wouldn't face, but I'm not seeing any numbers on how common it was.
But also, people need to understand this, because I see feminists say all the time, they're like, did you know that women couldn't get credit cards unless their husband signed off on it? It's like, did you know that women mostly weren't working? So the bank would be like, how do you intend to pay for this? And they'd be like, my husband has a job. And they'd be like, okay, well, then your husband needs to certify this. That doesn't sound as nefarious now, does it? Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.